Tonight, Patrick Brown announcing he will be running again for mayor of Brampton.
It has been the greatest privilege to serve the city over the last 4 years.
The announcement comes after Brown was disqualified from the federal Conservative leadership race and amidst major criticism from some of Brampton's city councillors. Plus,
spoke with her. I say, look, Miriam, you are so strong. I don't know if you hear me or not beside her, but you will be good.
She's the youngest person in Canada to receive a total artificial heart, earning the nickname Miriam Miracle. How she's doing a year after her life-saving surgery. And
they were knocked over and they were broken. The art pieces were in the water.
A man is charged after an art installation was badly damaged in downtown Toronto. The sculpture is part of the Brain Project, an annual initiative to raise awareness and money to support brain health. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Just days after being disqualified from the federal Conservative Party leadership race, Patrick Brown is looking to the future. The Brampton mayor announcing today he will be running again for the city's top job this fall. But it won't be an easy road to re-election, with Brown facing extensive criticism locally. Chris Glover has more.
Patrick Brown officially registers at Brampton City Hall to run again as mayor.
It's always been about serving Brampton.
Immediately defending his commitment to the city, less than 2 weeks after he was turfed as a leadership candidate by the federal Conservatives over alleged financing breaches, which he denies.
What I could have done for Brampton on a national level is obviously much more significant than you can do on a local level. But I'm still going to speak up.
He ran to be Brampton's mayor in fall of 2018 after resigning earlier that year as the provincial Tory leader amid sexual misconduct allegations he also denies. What was it then that he did that turned you off him so much?
I think it's more what he didn't do.
Despite volunteering on Brown's last mayoral campaign, Mario de Buomo came today hoping for a resignation speech.
I was hoping that he would have won the leadership to rid of us from him for Brampton. But unfortunately, they saw what he was all about, and they booted him out.
But surrounded by throngs of supporters today, Brown also has lots of people cheering him on.
We would have had somebody who understands and will advocate for Brampton as the leader or as prime minister. And so Brampton is never second fiddle. Brampton to Patrick Brown was always first.
Brown says his biggest accomplishments as mayor include funding for a new hospital, medical school, and transit facility.
So it just seems that there's a pattern.
But earlier this month, half of Brampton city councillors spoke out against what they call Brown's troubling pattern. They've supported forensic investigations into allegations of contract irregularities. How can he even lead a council that is so divided against him?
Yeah, I completely disagree.
Brown supporters don't buy it, and Brown himself denies it too.
Those are ludicrous claims that have no credibility, pushed by political adversaries.
In fact, he's calling for an investigation into the actions of those local politicians against him.
I welcome it, bring it on.
Councillor Jeff Bowman has spoken out against Brown.
A true leader would say, look, I'm going to work to unite this council, building consensus, bridging the gaps that currently exist. None of that was said.
Showing even if Brown wins in October, he has a lot of work ahead. Chris Glover, CBC News, Brampton.
The mayoral race in Toronto is beginning to heat up, with the city's newest candidate hitting the streets to campaign today.
My campaign is about Toronto for everyone. I think that every Torontonian doesn't really feel that they belong. And also people realize that the city is falling apart. All of a sudden we see the garbage overflown, the water fountains don't work, you go to the public transit and the escalators don't work. And also we need a city that is equitable and is sustainable.
Gil Penalosa marked the official launch of his run for mayor this morning. The urbanist announced his plans to jump in the race last week. Penalosa is the founder of the nonprofit 886 Cities and regularly comments on road safety issues. He'll take on at least 10 other candidates in the election this October, including Mayor John Tory. They call her Miriam Miracle, a little girl who had multiple heart surgeries by the time she was 11 years old. When a previous transplant failed, Miriam's family held on to hope that sick kids' doctors could save her. And they did, with an innovative procedure, setting a medical precedent in heart transplant surgeries. Ali Chiasson has this incredible story.
Miriam was born with 2 forms of congenital heart disease. By age 11, she suffered heart failure. Her heart transplant failed last year.
You know, it's not easy.
But instead of giving up hope, her family put their faith in the cardiologists at Sick Kids Hospital.
It was a really extremely long shot.
Dr. Osami Honjo and his team decided they'll attempt the first total artificial heart transplant on the youngest patient ever in Canada. She was also the smallest.
Based on her chest cavity size, it was really a tight fit.
The doctors kept her chest open for 5 days.
Once her blood pressure has stabilized and the pump flow got stabilized, we are able to close the chest.
She was on mechanical ventilation for 16 days while her family prayed the device would take.
To be honest, we're scared. I'm crying a lot in that time.
Then her doctors uttered the words,
"She's okay. She will be good." I started crying. Spoke with her. I say, "Look, Mariam, you are so strong. I don't know if you hear me or not beside her, but you will be good."
The artificial heart bought them time until a human heart transplant could be attempted again. And now, 1 year later, she's thriving, earning the nickname Miriam Miracle.
Say hi, Mariam.
What's one thing you want to do this summer before you have to go back to school?
Play with the dog.
It turns out the dog's nickname is pretty fitting, too.
This is Lucky.
You know, this is sort of beginning of her new journey. And I'm really hoping that this time will last very long.
And in the meantime, she can go on living her life now as it should be, as a kid, going to do kid things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that's the whole purpose of doing this difficult operations.
While setting a medical precedent that the artificial heart procedure can be successful in a young patient, the Sick Kids doctors gave now 12-year-old Miriam a new lease on life.
The message to the Sick Kids Hospital: thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you for everything you did for us, to our family.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
A 28-year-old woman has been arrested after carjacking a 70-year-old woman on the Gardiner Expressway this morning. The police say the alleged carjacker was cycling on the busy highway when the victim pulled her car over to assist her. The suspect then pulled the woman out of the driver's seat and stole the vehicle. The victim was taken to hospital with minor injuries. The suspect drove away west before colliding with another vehicle near Park Lawn Road. She was later arrested in what police say was a violent confrontation with officers. 26-year-old Pardeep Brar has been identified as the city's latest murder victim. He was one of 2 people shot at a nightclub early Sunday morning at King and Bathurst. A 24-year-old woman was treated in hospital for gunshot wounds and has since been released. And it was, as mentioned, a violent weekend in the city. 24-year-old Stephen Little McClacken was pronounced dead on scene after being shot at around 7:30 Saturday evening on Bremner Boulevard. No arrests have been made in either shooting. Durham police are alerting the public to expect hundreds of Hells Angels this weekend. The motorcycle group is doing their Canada run and is expected just north of Oshawa on Friday.
We have already seen the Hells Angel Motorcycle Club supporters on social media trivializing this and questioning why we're making a big deal about this, and feel that we are unfairly painting the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club in a negative light. Let me be clear today. They are an organized crime group. I want to ensure the community that our service is well aware of the event and have a comprehensive operational plan in place.
The Hells Angels are expected to gather in Brooklyn, just north of Oshawa. Police say they're working with the OPP to ensure an increased presence in the area. In 2020, a huge gun and drug bust called Project Kakia was connected to the group. Baycrest Foundation launched its annual Brain Project today. The art installation features a series of sculptures around the city meant to raise awareness on issues surrounding brain health. While today was the official launch, the sculptures were already on display last week, but many were damaged, putting a damper on fundraising efforts. Dale Manukduk reports.
July the 14th, 12:18 p.m. I was just walking through Nathan Phillips Square here.
Ken Kehoe often records his long walks around Toronto and posts them to his YouTube channel. Last week, he came across Brain Project sculptures knocked over in the pond.
And there's a guy sitting in the middle of Nathan Phillips Square here.
He was mumbling erratically to himself, gesturing towards the police,
almost beckoning them to, if you want me, come and get me. He was almost having a good time with it.
The sculptures were put up for display during the Toronto Outdoor Art Fair this past weekend. In a statement, TOF's executive director says the destruction of art and property is never appropriate. We don't believe it was with malicious intent, and we hope the individual responsible gets the mental health support they need. Toronto police officers were called to the scene. 34-year-old Ashton Gray of Toronto faces charges of assaulting a peace officer and damage of property over $5,000. 13 of 20 sculptures were severely damaged and no longer in condition to sell.
And over the last 7 years, the BRAIN project has raised around $4 million. So this year, we're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars that obviously we won't be raising this year because of it.
There are 7 sculptures still on display outside City Hall. There's also 10 more at the shops on Don Mills, including one titled Unraveled by Gina Godfrey, an interpretation of her own brain after a battle with COVID-19 last year.
You've put a lot of effort into this artwork. You know, most of us, including me, I'm a digital artist, so for me to do a BRAIN project, it has to be hand painted, it takes time, it takes thought.
It's also a donation from the artist. Godfrey compares the incident to being robbed. The 17 remaining BRAIN sculptures are all priced to sell. The money will be used for Baycrest research on brain health and battle to defeat dementia. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, glad to see some much needed rain early in the day.
Yes, desperately needed to get some of that kind of a soaking rainfall, not just the hit and miss showers we sometimes get. So saw some considerable amounts in the areas where we had rainfall warnings, Niagara and over towards eastern Ontario, with those amounts exceeding 50 and in some cases even 60 millimeters. So that's what happened through the day. And as the rain pushed eastward, you can see it's kind of reflected by the daytime highs. Cooler there where it was still raining, where the sun was breaking out, the temperatures kind of soaring, and sort of in between there, Toronto seeing temperatures basically right on track, very close to seasonal. That's not going to be the case the next couple of days. So for Tuesday and Wednesday, a heat warning has been issued. We're talking about highs around 30 degrees. In many cases, it's above that. And that humidex value pushing up towards 40. So it is oppressive. It is the kind of thing you need to take frequent breaks and make sure you are well hydrated. Tonight, 20 degrees with those clearing skies, 32 tomorrow. And there it is, feeling like 40 with the slight chance of an isolated shower or thunderstorm. More, though, for Wednesday. And I'll talk about that coming up, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Colette. 2 landlords who own properties on the same street in Etobicoke didn't know one another until they discovered a troubling connection. Both their tenants allegedly renovated their homes into illegal rooming houses and stopped paying rent. As Angelina King reports, the landlords took their fight for eviction to the Landlord and Tenant Board, but have been waiting for months.
No respect, like somebody lives in that room.
Marissa Anderson is watching walls in her rental property get demolished at the direction of her tenant. An international student was filming it from his phone, worried. He'd been renting a room in the basement.
I'm not sure what happening. I was completely helpless.
Anderson says the walls were being taken down weeks after they were put up, because she discovered her tenant built them to make extra bedrooms and installed a second kitchen in her basement to run a rooming house. She says people renting the rooms were living in cramped, unsafe quarters.
These new immigrants to Canada are being victimized. The idea that that was happening just made us feel sick.
The same thing was happening just a few doors down. Oksana Kravchuk's bungalow was turned into a 7-bedroom home with 9 beds.
I was in disbelief. One room was very small. I don't know how somebody can live in it.
The landlords have been trying to evict their tenants, Saeed Al-Dari and Melissa Tulshi, since late last year, but their hands are tied as their applications slowly make their way through the Landlord and Tenant Board process. In the meantime, they say the tenants haven't paid rent for around 8 months, but continue renting out the rooms.
I feel so frustrated and abandoned by the system.
Documents show Al-Dari and Tulshi combined owe their landlords nearly $120,000 in unpaid rent and utilities, property damage, and legal costs. CBC News reached out to them but didn't receive a response. In documents filed against their landlords, Al-Dari said the occupants living in the home were his roommates, and Tulshi claims her landlord allowed her to rent out rooms to make extra cash during the pandemic. In November, the international students called police after they say either Eldari or Tulshi tried to freeze them out, removing the thermostat's batteries, blasting the AC, and opening the windows.
Open.
Receipts show Anderson paid for the students to stay in an Airbnb and a hotel until they found other housing. It's all part of her and Kravchuk's cases with the LTB, which is expected to resume next month.
Just get me in my house, get me the keys.
During the last hearing, a different landlord said Tulshi is renting from him, and he believes Eldari is staying there, while 4 others are living in the basement. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. Officials from 40 countries are meeting at a climate conference in Berlin. And while they discuss ways to tackle climate change, the UK is sweltering in searing temperatures.
We just came to the beach. Came to Brighton. Yeah. Got the train. Pre-packed from there, yeah. And then came and cooled out.
Temperatures soaring into the 40s have many in England heading to the seaside for relief. The unprecedented heat has triggered a national emergency alert from Britain's Weather Office. It warns that the heat represents a threat even to healthy and fit people, not just those in high-risk groups. The government is asking people to avoid all unnecessary travel. And here in Canada, wildfires are burning. Extra resources have been called in from Ontario and Northwest Territories as a wildfire burns near a First Nation community in Manitoba. Almost 2,000 people have been taken to safety. The fire near Pukatawagan started Friday. The community is now virtually deserted. The military has provided transport planes to aid the evacuation. And in BC's southern interior, an out-of-control wildfire just outside the village of Lytton is growing. The Nahoman Creek fire now covers 17 square kilometers. The flames have destroyed or damaged at least 10 structures and forced more than 100 people to leave their homes. Now, Lytton was ravaged by a wildfire last year as well. Today, Emergency Preparedness Minister Bill Blair announced more than $850 million in federal funding to help BC rebuild. And you are looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline. Mostly clear tonight, remaining clear overnight. Currently, it's 23 degrees downtown, but feeling closer to 30. All right, let's go back to Colette now with a look at your long-range forecast. And Colette, things heating up the next couple of days.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at. And so a little bit earlier in the show, we show the areas that are included in the heat warning from Environment Canada, but it's essentially southern and eastern Ontario, but they've been heat warnings in northern Ontario as well. So the province really being overtaken by this air mass of very humid conditions. We do have the chance of a few pop-up showers or thunderstorms tomorrow. That risk is there. I want you to know that for Tuesday. But for Wednesday, it's more heightened risk as a cold front will be coming through. And so along that, we'll likely see some storms and possibly some severe ones into the afternoon and evening on Wednesday. And then behind that cold front, I say slight relief because the temperature dips a bit, the humidity dips a bit, but it's really just for only one day. And then Friday and towards next weekend, we see things going back up into that heat and into the humidity as well. So ahead, there's that chance into tomorrow of a few of these pop-ups. That's what's kind of being denoted on this model here. I think most folks in southern and eastern Ontario are just going to experience sunshine and dry conditions and the stickiness. But then it's as we get into Wednesday, we'll see this become more defined. So that's the warm front moving in along that cold front, and that's why we could get some heavier downpour, small hail possible, and damaging winds. So we'll be watching for that for you midweek. Overnight tonight with that clearing trend as we get through the overnight hours now, we're seeing those temperatures, high teens, 20 degrees for your overnight sleeping conditions, and very similar in terms of what we have around the Golden Horseshoe. So yes, it's the overnight lows that are also hot, and that's part of what happens, or they're on the warm side above seasonal, and that's also what plays into those heat warning values and the criteria for them. It's not just the daytime highs. So 32 tomorrow feels like 40 or above. Slight chance there, greater chance for that risk into Wednesday. Your brief respite for Thursday, and it is brief because then we start to see things going back in the other direction.
Thanks so much, Colette. South Asian Cultural Festival is back in person this year in the city's East End.
Last year, we did some virtual festival.
but nothing beats like it's an experience. A Festival of South Asia is not just a street festival, it's nostalgic, right? It's the experience people come for when it comes to food or music. It's to live that moment. So we are just so excited to be able to share that with, our fellow citizens.
The Festival of South Asia is happening this weekend on Gerrard Street. Today, organizers held a launch party. The event is organized by the Gerrard India Bazaar BIA. Festival goers can expect lots of entertainment with more than 100 artists performing, as well as activities for kids, a chance to play cricket, and of course, lots of food.
Dixon has done it in Toronto. Done it in a dominating fashion, guys.
People in attendance at yesterday's Honda Indy Toronto witnessing motorsport history. New Zealand's Scott Dixon winning the race for a fourth time and recording his 52nd career IndyCar win. That ties in with Mario Andretti for second on the series all-time win list. American Colton Herta and Swede Felix Rosenqvist rounded out the podium. Toronto drivers Devlin DeFrancesco and Dalton Kellett didn't fare so well, finishing 18th and 24th. Kellett blew an engine early in the race. Now, the next sporting event on the grounds of the X will be hosted by the Toronto FC, who announced a new player today.
I'm so happy, and thank you to all for the tratative and for my confidence. Thank you so much.
That's Federico Bernardeschi, the latest in what seems to be an Italian takeover of the TFC. He is the third Italian player to sign with the team in recent weeks. That includes Juventus star Lorenzo Insigne. Bernardeschi is an attacker with 6 career goals for Italy on the world stage. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night.